Hello folks, today I'll be showing you guys how to do a hub bearing on a 2004 Dodge Ram 5.7 Hemi 4x4. I already got the tire off and I'll be putting new brakes and rotors on here. I hauled my camper with this, so you can use the updated brakes. But yeah, this is before I even start. I just got the tire off, so this is how it looks before we start the job. You got your upper control arms, your aluminum spindle, your outer tie rod, your lower ball joint. So first things first is we gotta get the brake system off. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that off, and I'll be back. Hello, I'm back. I'm just getting ready to pull this caliper off. I got the 2 caliper bolts off. I was just gonna show you guys a quick little shortcut, helpful hint here to get this caliper off. Sometimes when the pads are all pushed out on the rotor, you take a flathead screwdriver and you pull the caliper off a little bit, and then you stick the caliper in between the piston and the brake pad, and you pry it back. And that you can feel the piston go in, and then look at the caliper pops right off. You don't have to do it that way. You can fight it a little bit, but you got to really pry it apart. It's a lot easier when the pistons are pushed in from the caliper. But there we go. My brakes are actually not that bad, but the rotors are just rusty. So I'm gonna get this all disassembled, the brakes and down to the rotor, and I'll be back. All right, folks, I got the caliper bracket bolts loosened. Just gotta unthread these real quick by hand. There's the caliper bracket. We're gonna get a new one of these also because we got new calipers. And then here's the rotor. All right, we're getting down there. Right now I should be spraying this oil, JB80, really good stuff. Some of these nuts, you know, just don't hurt to spray some of this stuff. All right. All right, I'll be back. Hello folks, I'm back. All right, the next step we're gonna do is you got your upper control arm. Your upper control arm, you got a nut with the cotter pin. You gotta squeeze this to get the cotter pin out. And what I use is a wire cutter. Got that out. All right, I'll go ahead and buzz this off. I'll be back. All right, I got my air chisel with the pickle fork in here. There she goes. She broke loose. I already broke this loose first, but I just backed off a little bit, but let's leave a little bit of threads on there just till you break this free. And then I'll be back to show you guys what more to do here. All right, I got this off. I'll get the air ratchet on here. Oh. Bang, bong, popped right off after you split it with the pickle fork. All right, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and after we got the upper control arm ball joint separated, then come down here, grab a 35mm socket, my handy dandy earthquake. We're gonna buzz this center nut off of the CV axle. Just like that. And I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. Got me a brass hammer. You just want to tap it lightly on the, just so it's make it free. Let me grab a pry bar here. Got that split apart. This act's a little tough, but hit it again harder. Okay, I hit it a little bit harder. Just drove through the spline right here. So now it's all dangly loose. So now you gotta separate the CV shaft from the spindle here. So I got to pry on the bottom of the CV shaft just so you get it out of the hub bearing itself. You can see down there. Let me see if we get a little light on the situation, so you guys can see it. And there's you see them bolts right there. 1, 2, 3 bolts. Them are the hub bearing bolts that hold that hub bearing in. And you do not drop the lower ball joint. You do not have to. But then, hey, if you follow the ABS light, ABS sensor, this one does not have it. Oh, the other side had an ABS one, so it must only have one sensor for the front axles, which is nice. So, all right, I'm gonna get this set up to show you guys how to get these bolts off. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. So I got this one loose. It's a what's a meter? It's 18 millimeter, I think. Let me check real quick. Let you guys know what bolt size it is. 18 millimeter, 6-point socket is preferable. And then I got a 6-inch extension on a 1/2-inch impact, and then all right, got that out. Okay. Then you gotta rotate this CV shaft downwards. Go ahead and put your socket back up on there. All right. Get these two out of the way. Then you can rotate this back up, pull that last. I didn't use no extension on this one. I could just use the impact and the shallow socket. But there you go. Now, with that being done, now it's gonna take some beating here. We have to beat this. This is aluminum. This is steel, so it's probably seasoned here, of course. You know, two metals don't like each other. So I'm gonna pound on this back and forth with my BFH, big fucking hammer. And I'll be back to see tell you guys how it goes. All right, took some tapping, pounding, but yeah, she came right off. Wasn't that bad. About 10 whacks with the big hammer, big maul. Here's the backing plate. And there you go. Got that all tore apart. CV axle, spindle, aluminum spindle. Upper ball joint is disconnected. You can leave the outer tie rod, inspect it, see if you need it or not. Now what I'm gonna do next step is clean this all up, this whole surface right here. And then we would put some grease or anti-seize or something in there, just like this CV shaft has some anti-seize. That's why this probably came apart pretty easy. If not, I've seen them where they're so rusty, you gotta get a blowtorch out and start heating and cutting, so be aware of that. But we do live in Minnesota, so we do collect a lot of salt. But, all right, I'm gonna get this cleaned up and I'll be back. Make sure you wear safe glasses if you use some high-powered wire wheel like I did. So inspect it. I got some grooves right here in this aluminum starting to deteriorate, but it's gonna be fine for now. Eventually I'm trying to buy one of these new spindles, but until then, just inspect the CV shaft, the threads. You can wiggle the lower ball joint, make sure everything moves. Check this control arm. I want to be spraying oil in these when I'm done with the job, just to help it, you know. All right, well, that's all cleaned up and I'll be getting ready to reassemble. I'll be back. Okay, I got my new parts. I'll show you guys here, the new hub bearing. Match up with the old hub bearing, make sure it's the right one. I got these from Detroit Axle. really good deal on eBay. They're really good at getting the right parts. So, but this one, I have one ABS sensor on the driver's side. This one didn't have ABS on the passenger side. So what I did was I just snipped it right here and leave that plug in there so no dirt and grime gets there. And I just, yeah, snipped her off. And just a little note there, guys. Okay, before you put the hub bearing on, I recommend you put anti-seize or some kind of grease along this ridge on the new hub bearing. And what I do is you're going to be fighting with the CV shaft. You can try to pull it out and push it off to the side. I'm going to just leave it right there and just slide it through. I put one bolt on here, the backing plate. So then, all right, I'll be back. Okay, a little trick is here, when you put this hub bearing on, you put this all on with your fingers, your hand, and you got to start a bolt. Tighten it down, go back and forth with this one and this one. And then what happens is that hub bearing holds that CV shaft. You can't get the CV shaft to hold on the control or on the spindle. So you got to use the hub bearing as a holder. So then you can rotate the CV shaft around so I can get that last bolt down there. So I'm gonna get that started and get that tightened down. Okay, the best angle to have this to get the CV boot back through that hub assembly is kind of tilt it down like this, down towards the front. Oh, what do you say, right? But it's got to be towards the front of the truck to get the most extension out of the CV boot. It's going to be a little fighting, but you can get it without taking a lot more stuff off, so it's just a good thing to know. Okay, then you start the big nut and you slam that down. You don't have to get crazy tight with that. Just slam it until it gets really tight, but not over tighten it, of course. Okay, now I'm about to put this upper control arm back on. This boot came off, but I'm just going to fill it full of grease. Just going to fill this full of grease and just pop that back on. All right, then you just push this down with your hand and use your fingers to get that just started. Now I'm gonna use the air ratchet to tighten that up there. There's a 7/8 socket. Snug her down. So I packed that full of grease, and then I got the grease start too, but I just pre-packed it since the boot came off. Then don't forget your cotter pin. Make sure you put a cotter pin in that. All right, cotter pin's in. Upper control arm is now all done. Hub bearings all tightened. Everything looks good. Go around, double check your work. I also ordered these reman calipers from eBay. They come with the bracket, the new slider bolts, the new hardware. Very nice. I think I bought two of them for 70 bucks or something. So I'm gonna get them taken apart. Okay, I got the rotor on, the caliper bracket. Tighten these down with the impact. Now I rehand tighten them just to double check it, but they're tight. I greased up all the hardware just because keep it all lubricated really nice. Put some grease on the back of the pads, dissipate the heat. So, okay, I got the brand new caliper. I popped these sliders out and I greased them really good, top and bottom. Make sure they go really nice in and out. That's what keeps the pressure off your pads when you're not using them. Else the pressure, bad sliders will just make your pads ride on your rotors and create heat, friction, warp of the new rotor. No good. I'm gonna put this caliper on. Quick little tip is put a little baby vice grip right here to hold that rotor flush. That way these pads won't kick out on you, so they'll keep kicking out while you try to put this caliper on. Okay, remember each caliper is opposite. This one you gotta put in the passenger side. You gotta put it in first on top, and then drop it into the bottom. It's got a big, like a hook underneath this bracket. And put your caliper bolts in. get them hand started. I'll hand tighten those down. You don't want to, never want to use air tools to tighten them too tight because you'll snap them or spin the threads right out of them. And always make sure your caliper bleeder is always on top. You can't bleed the system from the bottom. I made that fatal mistake before my times working on cars. So yeah, now next is we gotta remove the old caliper brake hose off the old caliper, and then we'll mount it on the new one. Okay, when you remove the old brake hose off the old caliper, you gotta make sure you take all these old brass bushings off both sides. You don't want two brass bushings on there. Okay, I got the brake line on, brass bushing on top and on the bottom of the brake caliper. And do not over tighten this. You gotta tighten it so start crushing this copper, but do not over tighten it. You're better off going back and re-tighten it if you have to, if it leaks a little bit, because these are really easy to strip out. And they're kind of hard to determine when the stop point is with the brass, but just snug it up real nice, and there you go. There's your hub assembly removal and assembly with new brakes, rotors, calipers. Now I'm to get somebody in here help me bleed these brakes, and I'm gonna grease the front end and go on a road trip. Thanks for watching, and good luck with your hub assembly. These fit from 2002 to 2005, I believe, these Dodges. And they're similar on a lot of the hub bearings assemblies with different makes and models. But thanks for watching.